Welcome back to Catnap Recaps. Today, we're diving into Undisputed, the legendary fight saga that follows the life of Yuri Boyka, from the king of the prison ring to a man seeking redemption. Since the first movie's story isn't connected to the later ones, we'll skip that part. If you're curious, you can check it out separately. Alright, let's get started. Inside the prison cafeteria, inmates were eating quietly when suddenly everyone stood up. The king of the ring had arrived. Even the warden didn't dare to cross him, but the new guy didn't seem impressed at all. One of Boyka's men stepped forward to show dominance. "You got a death wish, stand up." Before anyone could blink, the new guy punched him flat to the floor. He then walked up to Boyka and said, "Why the hell should I stand up for you?" Then he spat into a cup and threw it right in Boyka's face. The guts on this guy. Turns out, he was the reigning world boxing champion. Now the king of the prison was facing off against the king of the ring, who would come out on top. That man's name was Yuri Boyka. In this prison, no one dared touch him, even the warden showed him respect. With 34 undefeated fights, Boyka was an unstoppable legend. Illegal boxing matches were a common thing here, streamed live by the mob boss who raked in huge profits from bets. Odds were always 5-1 in Boyka's favor. Nobody ever bet against him because nobody ever beat him. As the bell rang, his opponent launched a flurry of kicks, but Boyka dodged every strike with ease. He countered with a lightning-fast punch, then spun into a brutal kick combination that dropped his opponent cold. The man tried to get back up, but Boyka unleashed a storm of attacks, knee strikes, kicks, punches, until finally, a 360-degree spinning kick finished the fight. Let's see if you can stand up after that. That made it 34 wins in a row for Boyka. But the crime boss wasn't happy. The more Boyka won, the more money he lost. He needed anyone, who could bring Boyka down. Enter George Iceman Chambers, the three-time world boxing champion. One look at his chiseled frame, and it was clear, this man wasn't your average inmate. But why was he here? Turns out the mob boss Gaga had framed him by planting drugs in his belongings and tipping off the police. Chambers was thrown in prison for a crime he didn't commit. As part of intake, every new inmate had to shower with ice-cold water. Chambers refused to accept this humiliation and snapped back at the guards. That didn't end well. Armed with batons, the guards charged in, but Chambers easily took them all down within seconds. Furious, the warden pressed the red button, sending an electric shock through the room that forced Chambers to comply. Well, outnumbered again, guess I'll let this one slide. At lunch, Chambers walked into the mess hall, sat down, and once again, everyone stood up. Boyka and his crew had arrived. Chambers didn't even glance at them. One of Boyka's men approached and got knocked out instantly. Chambers picked up his cup, walked straight to Boyka, spat in it, and splashed it across his face before walking away coolly. Boyka lunged at him, but Chambers used a chair to block. Boyka shattered it with a kick, and the two clashed violently until the guards stormed in just in time to break it up. After returning, Boyka was furious. He swore he would wash away this humiliation in the ring, but Chambers had no desire to fight him. To Chambers, Boyka's prison king title was a joke, nothing to be proud of. All he wanted was to get out of there as fast as possible. However, the mob boss had cut a deal with the warden. Nobody leaves unless they step into the ring. To force Chambers into a one-on-one with Boyka, the warden cooked up schemes. First, Boyka's goons were sent to start trouble. Chambers fought off 4 attackers at once and cleared the situation. The beaten thugs humiliated Boyka's crew, but it was just bait to provoke a bigger conflict and push both men into a fight. Chambers still refused to play along. The plan failed, so the warden decided to hang Chambers out to dry. Chambers was no coward. He refused to submit. They hauled him to the sewer work detail and forced him to do filthy labor. The place reeked. Without protective gear, you couldn't last a second. Chambers refused to comply and the guards threatened him with weapons. At that moment, an old white-haired man appeared and helped him out. Chambers realized the old man was no ordinary inmate. Reluctantly, Chambers had to take orders and do the dirty work. The torment didn't last forever. One night Boyka's men returned to start trouble, but Chambers stood his ground and handled them quickly. Eventually they locked him into the prison's worst cell, the water cell. It was designed to drive men insane. The stench of sewage, the cramped airless space, rats swimming through the water, the damp, freezing conditions left him shaking, and soon Chambers ran a high fever. The old white-haired man came back with warm water and medicine, urging Chambers to face reality. In this place, the only rule is to keep living. Not long after, the mob boss showed up in person. He wasted no words. He could get Chambers out on one condition. Chambers had to fight Boyka. "Don't dream about getting out without me. Without me, you'll never leave." Chambers' manager had been bought off, cornered. Chambers had no choice but to prepare for the fight. He asked his cellmate to spar with him. Across the yard, Boyka trained like a man possessed. The long-awaited showdown was about to begin. The rules were brutal and simple: fight to the death. The match started and both men attacked fiercely. Chambers launched continuous assaults, pinning Boyka into a corner. Boyka countered. Chambers dodged and fired back with a left hook followed by a right. Boyka couldn't fully defend and felt blow after blow, punches driving into a wall of flesh. Chambers finished with a perfect throw. Boyka crashed to the mat. The arena fell silent. Chambers declared, "This man crowned king in prison can't take a proper punch." But Boyka rose. He switched to his specialty, devastating kicks. Chambers, a boxer by trade, wasn't trained for that style. In the second round, he struggled to handle Boyka's onslaught. Boyka landed an airborne kick Chambers couldn't block. Chambers barely held on. As round 2 continued, Chambers began to feel dizzy. Boyka launched another flying kick that knocked him out cold. The result was inevitable. When Chambers came to, he was disoriented. The old white-haired man told him he'd been drugged. Shocked, Chambers realized his cellmate had poisoned him. Back in the cell, Chambers found his roommate had killed himself, leaving a note that said everything had been unavoidable. Chambers confronted Boyka. Boyka was stunned. "You think I need to drug you to beat you?" Then the warden showed up. The same man who had once promised to free Chambers now swallowed his word. Chambers punched the fat warden in fury. At the same time, Boyka tracked down the henchman who had laced Chambers' drink, and with a single punch, ended him. For Boyka, the fight had to be honorable. He refused cowardly tricks and backstabbing. If you wanted to win, you won openly. It turned out the drugging was all ordered by the mob boss himself. "Everyone bet on you to win, except me. I bet on you to lose. That's how I make a fortune." If Chambers wanted his freedom, he had to fight one more time, and this time, he had to win. With no other option, Chambers agreed, but on one condition: no one gets drugged this time. He wanted a fair fight. Back in his cell, Chambers trained like a madman, pushing himself to the limit. Boyka did the same, relentless, obsessed. Then the old white-haired man approached Chambers. "If you want to defeat Boyka, you'll need to counter his kicks." The old man turned out to be a former Soviet commander, an expert in close combat training. Under his guidance, Chambers learned how to fight with his legs, grapple, block opponents, and perfect other advanced techniques. Meanwhile, Boyka continued his brutal routine. The final showdown was set. In the first round, Boyka tested his opponent and quickly realized Chambers was fast, adaptive, and powerful. For once, Boyka wasn't in control. In round 2, Boyka went all out, overwhelming Chambers before he could land a single solid punch. He slammed Chambers to the mat, pinned him down, locked his arms. By the end of the round, Chambers was exhausted. The old man warned him, "If you don't pull out your secret weapon now, you'll never win." Then came the third round. Chambers unleashed everything he had, precise, deadly strikes. He grabbed, twisted, countered, flipped Boyka over, knocking teeth across the floor. Boyka had no chance to fight back. Finally, Chambers locked Boyka's leg and, crack, snapped his knee clean. The match was over. This time, the mob boss cashed in big. True to his word, he set Chambers free and even handed him $1 million as thanks, but Chambers used all of it to buy the freedom of the old white-haired man, the one who had saved him in prison. That's where Undisputed II ends. What fate awaits Boyka, the so-called king of the ring? Stay tuned for the next part, and don't forget to like, share, and subscribe to Catnap Recaps for more epic stories. Don't underestimate the beggar in front of you. He's the prison's most mysterious janitor, messy hair, filthy clothes, scrubbing the dirtiest toilets every day, and to top it off, he's crippled. But once upon a time, he was the undefeated king of the prison fights, a man with deadly martial arts skills. Years ago, he lost a fight that shattered his pride and sent him into obscurity. No one knew that every day he secretly trained, using buckets of water to strengthen his injured knee, all to reclaim his throne as the king of the underground ring. One day, the mob boss Gaga came to see him, Boyka's former promoter and the man who ran the prison itself. Back in Boyka's glory days, Gaga had made a fortune off his fights. Seeing Boyka's miserable state, Gaga offered to move him to a better cell, but Boyka refused. He had only one request. "I just want to fight again." Trying to fight with a broken knee was suicide, but Boyka never gave up. He trained day and night, pushing through pain, believing that one day, his chance would come. And it did. At the prison's annual underground tournament, fighter Saikov dominated every match and was crowned champion. As he raised his hands to celebrate, a bucket of cold water splashed down on him from the stands. Everyone turned. It was Boyka, now clean-shaven and with a fierce look in his eyes. The guards rushed to drag him out, but Gaga, watching from the stands, gave the order to let him fight. Finally, Boyka got his chance to return to the ring. The bell rang. Saikov thought he'd finish this cripple in one round, but Boyka dodged every punch with ease. When Saikov threw another strike, Boyka pivoted on one leg and countered with a devastating left hook. Saikov was stunned. Boyka followed up with a brutal flurry of kicks, completely taking over the fight. Finally, he spun and kicked Saikov clean off the ring. The crowd went wild. The terrifying king of the ring had returned. That victory earned Boyka a transfer to a maximum security prison in Georgia, where an international prison fighting tournament was being held. Fighters from all over the world were competing, and the most dangerous of them all was Dolar, the massive Georgian champion. Everyone had the same goal: money. For Gaga, who oversaw the betting, the fighters' lives meant nothing. Profits were everything. Life there was hell. The fighters were chained and forced to smash rocks on a desolate mountain all day, all except one man, Dolar, who sat on the hill, relaxed, reading a novel like a king. When the day's labor ended, the others got only 1 hour of training with worn-out equipment. Dolar, meanwhile, had a state-of-the-art gym, full support staff, and trainers refining his every move. The whole tournament was clearly rigged for Dolar to win. Soon, the fights began. In the first match, Paris the Warrior faced the Greek champion. With dizzying speed and lightning-fast kicks, Paris dominated the match, knocking his opponent to the floor and pummeling him mercilessly until the referee stepped in. In the second match, Turbo, the American fighter, faced the Croatian brawler. At first, they traded heavy blows, but Turbo quickly adapted, blocking with his elbows and landing a crushing strike that ended the fight. Finally, in the third round, Boyka entered the arena. His opponent was from France. Using his signature spinning kicks and relentless precision, Boyka overwhelmed the man and finished him with a flawless aerial kick. The crowd roared. Boyka had proven he was back. The fourth match featured Dolar versus the North Korean fighter. It was the most anticipated fight. Dolar was known as the Final Reaper. With complete combat mastery and years of experience, no attack could touch him. He toyed with his opponent, dodged every strike, then unleashed a spinning kick so powerful it sent the North Korean fighter crashing to the mat. Day 1 of the tournament ended. The 4 defeated fighters were loaded into a prison van, but instead of going home, they were driven to a desolate field and executed on the spot. The winners, unaware of this, kept working like slaves, hammering rocks under the scorching sun. Meanwhile, Turbo, the American fighter, tried to befriend Boyka, but Boyka thought he talked too much nonsense and ignored him. Turbo kept pestering him until Boyka finally snapped and punched him. Turbo fought back, and in front of everyone, the two brawled fiercely until guards stormed in to break them apart. They were thrown into separate isolation cells, dark, wet, and barely big enough to breathe. Not long after, Gaga and another crime boss visited. When Gaga saw the fighters' brutal conditions, he was furious and confronted Kuss, the tournament organizer. Kuss smirked. "You should bet all your money on Dolar. We can make sure no one else wins." Gaga found the logic sound. They shook hands and became partners in profit. Back at the quarry, Boyka and Turbo calmed down. They realized Kuss was deliberately exhausting the fighters to give Dolar an advantage. So they changed tactics, turning forced labor into training. They used the work to build strength and endurance, helping and encouraging each other, to the astonishment of the guards. As they grew closer, Turbo noticed Boyka's knee still caused him pain. Risking punishment, he gathered wild herbs to help Boyka ease the swelling. They bonded over shared struggle. Turbo admitted, "I just want to get home to my family." Boyka replied, "I was born to fight. Beating my opponent is the only thing I know." Time passed, and the semifinals arrived. Both fighters tested each other cautiously, neither gaining ground. It was an intense, evenly matched fight, but Boyka spotted an opening, landed a decisive kick that shifted the momentum, and locked his opponent's arm, forcing a submission. Boyka advanced to the final round. As for Paris the Warrior, he thought he was being sent home, but instead, a single gunshot ended his journey. To guarantee Dolar's spot in the finals, Kuss framed Turbo for misconduct and had him brutally beaten. When Boyka learned what happened, he was furious but powerless. Now, his only mission was to defeat Dolar. Soon after, Dolar himself approached Boyka, mocking him. "A janitor like you thinks he can win." Then, with a cruel smile, he added, "Your friend Turbo won't be around much longer." Boyka understood immediately. Determined to save Turbo, Boyka shared his plan. He would smash his leg chains with a hammer, and Turbo would escape into the nearby forest. At first, Turbo didn't believe Kuss would kill him until an old prisoner whispered, "No one ever leaves this place alive." Turbo made up his mind, but the sound of Boyka's hammer alerted the guards. Sirens blared. The two had no choice but to fight back. After a fierce brawl, several guards were knocked out. Boyka grabbed the keys and unlocked Turbo's chains. Turbo bolted for freedom, and when a guard raised his gun to shoot, Boyka hurled a rock, knocking him off balance and saving Turbo's life. Turbo escaped, but Boyka was inevitably captured and brought back. Just as he expected, Kuss didn't punish him, but Boyka soon learned the bitter truth: Gaga had betrayed him, betting everything on Dollar. Clenching his fists, Boyka swore to himself, "I'll defeat Dollar and destroy their plans." A few days later, the final match began. Using his massive build and sheer strength, Dollar went on the offensive, hammering Boyka with brutal strikes. Boyka prepared to counter with his trademark kicks, but Dollar caught his injured leg and snapped it right there in the ring. In agony, Boyka still managed to kick Dollar away with his good leg. Now half crippled, he continued to fight, limping, bleeding, refusing to give up. Dollar exploited the weakness, repeatedly attacking the damaged knee, and finally kicked Boyka clean off the ring. Everyone thought it was over. But Boyka rolled over, saw a mop lying nearby, a reminder of the countless days he spent scrubbing toilets, humiliated and forgotten. All those days of pain and struggle, they had led to this very moment. With a roar, Boyka pushed himself up and launched a furious counterattack. He unleashed everything he had: punches, kicks, pure rage, driving Dollar into the ground, each blow heavier than the last. Dollar screamed in pain, but Boyka didn't stop until he landed the final strike that knocked him out cold. Boyka had done it. Against all odds, he won the championship. The mobsters behind the scenes were in chaos. One enraged boss stormed into Kuss's office with a gun, demanding his millions back. He shot 2 high-ranking officials before being killed by Kuss himself. Later, Kuss confronted Boyka, delivering cold words. According to tournament rules, only one man earns his freedom. You helped Turbo escape, so you forfeited yours. Boyka was taken away again, driven to a deserted wasteland. As Kuss prepared to execute him, a gunshot echoed. From the distance, Turbo appeared, gun in hand. He stormed the site, taking down guards one by one and freeing Boyka from certain death. Far away, Gaga sat in his luxury car, waiting. He handed Boyka a briefcase full of cash and said, "I never bet on Dollar. I put everything on you, because I've always believed you're the most complete fighter in the world." Gaga invited both Boyka and Turbo to join him, but Boyka refused. The two men shared a final handshake, a farewell between warriors, before Boyka walked away, carrying the suitcase into the horizon. That's how Undisputed III Redemption ends, but has Boyka truly earned his freedom, or is his real fight still ahead? Stay tuned for the next chapter, only on Catnap Recaps. This is the most dangerous man in prison. His arms and legs are shackled with heavy chains, while 4 guards pull tight on the iron collar around his neck to keep him under control. His name is Koshmar, Russia's top boxing champion, known by his terrifying nickname, the Nightmare. The sheer aura he gives off makes his opponent lose all courage before the bell even rings. Once the chains come off, Koshmar becomes a beast unleashed, walking onto the ring like a predator. You could see the difference between them instantly: power, size, and presence. No matter how much his opponent attacks, it's useless. Koshmar lets him throw punches until exhaustion sets in, then ends it with a single devastating strike. In just seconds, the match, and a man's life, are over. Meanwhile, somewhere else in Russia, another fierce fighter was rising: Yuri Boyka. Since escaping from prison, Boyka has lived as a wanted man, surviving only through underground fights. Every time he steps into the ring, the crowd erupts. With sharp technique and ruthless precision, he crushes opponents one after another. Though undefeated, his dream has always been clear: to fight legally in a professional boxing championship. One day, his manager came to him, grinning. "The next match is big. If you win, you'll qualify for the World Boxing Championship." Boyka could hardly contain his joy. This was the moment he'd been waiting for. The match began soon after. Both men smiled, touched gloves, and got to work. The opponent charged forward aggressively, dominating early. But Boyka wasn't one to back down. He dodged, countered, and unleashed a flurry of sharp, technical blows that drove the man backward. The opponent quickly adjusted, counter-attacking hard, but Boyka caught him mid-step and drove a knee straight into his body, sending him crashing to the ground. Even then, the man refused to stay down. Ignoring the referee, he stood again and again, fueled by sheer willpower. Boyka, now frustrated, unleashed a brutal combination that knocked him out cold. That win earned Boyka a ticket to the big leagues. After the fight, his manager congratulated him. "Rest up, 2 weeks from now, you're fighting on the world stage, here's your prize money." But when Boyka later saw his opponent again, the man was barely breathing. That night, Boyka couldn't sleep. He never imagined his fists, his pride, would become the cause of someone's death. The next morning, Boyka rushed to ask his manager about the man's condition. The news hit him like a hammer. The fighter had died after emergency treatment. Even though both had signed a waiver, Boyka was overcome with guilt. Looking through the man's records, he discovered something that cut even deeper. The man had a wife. Feeling guilty, Boyka tracked down the address of the man he had accidentally killed. There, he met Alma, the man's widow. She immediately recognized Boyka from the arena, but before she could say a word, a man in a suit arrived and forced her into a car. Boyka followed them quietly all the way to a private underground fighting club. Inside, he saw Alma working as a waitress and approached her to ask why. She explained that when she opened her gym, she borrowed money from Zorab, the club owner. Now that her husband was gone, she couldn't repay the debt, so Zorab forced her to work for him. Hearing this, Boyka finally understood why that man kept getting up again and again in their fight. He was fighting for the woman he loved. At that moment, several guards stepped in, warning Boyka to stay away from Alma. They dragged him outside, planning to rough him up, but Boyka took them all down within seconds. The commotion caught Zorab's attention. After learning Boyka's reason for being there, he made an offer: win 3 fights, and Alma's debt is cleared; lose, and she'll be my servant for life. He gave Boyka 1 day to decide. The next day, Boyka returned to the club but was stopped by Zorab's goons. Already annoyed, Boyka punched one of them unconscious with a single blow. He then called Alma out and told her everything. Furious, Alma yelled at him to leave. Boyka didn't argue. He simply said, "I'll make it right with my own fists," then walked away calmly. The guard he'd knocked out woke up only to be sent back to sleep again. "Ah, to be young again," Boyka muttered. Boyka then met with Zorab and agreed to fight 3 matches to erase Alma's debt, but he didn't realize there was a far darker plan behind the deal. Soon came the first match. The opponent was no real challenge, just a warm-up. Boyka, with his superior skills, knocked him out effortlessly. But just as he raised his fist for the finishing blow, he remembered the man he'd killed and stopped himself. Later, while Boyka rested backstage, Alma came to see him. Seeing that he was doing all this for her, she was moved. She offered, "If you want to train, you can use my gym." Outside, the security guard rubbed his head and said sheepishly, "I just woke up, that's all." Soon came the second fight, and this time, Boyka faced a surprise: twin brothers. No one had warned him. Though their strength was unimpressive, their teamwork was flawless. Boyka got caught off guard and took a hard hit to the back, injuring his spine. Struggling to stay upright, he glanced down at Alma in the crowd. Fueled by anger, Boyka roared back to life. He adjusted his stance, unleashed a series of vicious kicks, dropped one twin, and sent the other flying. He knocked them both out, sealing his second victory. Afterward, Zorab came up with a mad idea. He bribed a prison warden to bring in Koshmar, the Nightmare, the murderous champion from prison, to face Boyka in the final match. That night, Boyka visited Alma. She brewed him herbal medicine and tended to his wounds. Her heart had softened. She had forgiven him. Though he had accidentally killed her husband, she understood now. In the ring, life and death are fate. No one can change that. Finally, the night Boyka had been waiting for arrived, his final fight. If he won tonight, he'd clear his guilt, redeem Alma's debt, and find peace within himself. His opponent, Kazmir, the reigning champion. The fight began. Kazmir taunted Boyka relentlessly, using his home ground advantage to sneak in cheap shots. Boyka countered, but Kazmir was no amateur. He spun and landed a heavy kick, hammering Boyka's ribs with vicious strikes. Kazmir roared, thinking he'd already won. But Boyka, the most complete fighter alive, doesn't fall that easily. He shifted his stance, focused on leg strikes, and within seconds, Kazmir's balance broke. A few swift kicks later, Boyka spun through the air and knocked him out cold. The crowd erupted. But Zorab wasn't done. He demanded one more match or Alma would never go free. Outraged but cornered, Boyka agreed. His final opponent, Koshmar, the Nightmare himself. When Koshmar stepped into the arena, the atmosphere turned ice cold. He was a beast, massive, terrifying. Even Boyka looked uneasy. When the bell rang, Boyka attacked, but his blows did nothing. Koshmar's speed and power were overwhelming. One brutal strike sent Boyka crashing to the floor. When he woke up, Boyka saw Alma in the crowd, her face filled with worry. Fueled by her gaze, he forced himself back up, staggering, bleeding. He realized Koshmar's weakness: his lower body was slow. Boyka changed tactics, no more close combat. He unleashed a relentless barrage of kicks, striking low, targeting the monster's legs and midsection. Gradually, the fight turned in his favor. Then came the moment, a perfect spinning kick that sent Koshmar flying off the ring. Boyka had won. The crowd chanted his name, Boyka, Boyka. Zorab, furious, ordered his men to attack. Alma screamed. Boyka, half-conscious, woke again, pure instinct taking over. He grabbed a wooden bar and took down 2 men in an instant. As he rushed to save Alma, a shot rang out, a bullet tore through his leg. Boyka felt, grabbed a gun, and fired back, chasing Zorab outside. Zorab held Alma at gunpoint, forcing Boyka to drop his weapon. As he prepared to pull the trigger, Alma bit his hand, giving Boyka an opening. Boyka charged through a hail of bullets, tackling Zorab to the ground and ending his miserable life once and for all. Moments later, the police arrived. Boyka was arrested and sent back to prison, the place where his story had begun. 6 months later, Alma visited him. She looked at him softly and said, "I've forgiven you." For the first time, Boyka smiled, a calm, peaceful smile. He was finally free inside. Months later, Boyka took Koshmar's place as the top fighter in the prison ring, once again the undisputed king of the underground. That's the full story of Undisputed II, and IV, a saga of redemption, honor, and unbreakable will. So, what do you think of Boyka's journey? Rate it on a scale of 1 to 10 in the comments below, and don't forget to like, share, and subscribe to Catnap Recaps for more amazing stories. See you next time.